News Radio 840 WHAS. Good Sunday morning. Bob Sokoler, the Louisville Real Estate Show, with you till the top of the hour. With us for this half hour, Brad Lawler, owner of Home Team Inspection Service. They come in as a team. They are the number one home team inspection service now, 7, and we say soon to be 8 years in a row. I don't want to jinx you. You can reach Brad and his group, 844-411-TEAM. Also, Kevin Dissler, Pitt and Frank Attorneys, at 895-9900. You can reach Kevin anytime, and his folks are more than happy to help you get your home closed at the closing table. And Kevin does other things too. We might want to talk about that sometime down the road there, Kev. You can reach me, sure. Bob Sokoler, 376-5483. If you want to get your home on the market, or even talk about the plan and what to do to get it on the market, you can reach out to me, bob@sellmyhome.com, or sellmyhomebob.com, or by 376-5483. And we'll come out, no obligation, no cost, just we sit and talk and figure out what needs to be done to get you going. In the news, spring market already blooming, and so is the competition. Buyer competition intensified ahead of spring back in February now, they're saying, and likely will intensify further over the next few weeks. On average, there were nearly 5 offers for every home sold in February, and then in March, and higher in recent months, and going to get it even higher. That's according to a new Realtors Confidence Index survey. Real estate professionals who were surveyed reported that 5 offers on average in Massachusetts, Georgia, Texas, Colorado, Utah, Washington, California. But here in Louisville and Southern Indiana, they're also, depending upon location and price, there are more than 5 offers coming in, just so you know. And to sweeten the pot, to get things going even more, our board of realtors this past week before went ahead and approved something that we were not able to do up until last week, and that was the words "coming soon." Kev, you want to explain that from a legal perspective, what that means to both buyers, sellers, and real estate agents?
Well, essentially, as you're kind of commenting about kind of an overheated market that we have, and this is kind of throwing a little bit of gasoline on the fire. But a coming soon is a property that you're allowed to put on MLS as a coming soon property, but you're not allowed to show the property. It's my understanding you can put videos on, you can put photographs, you can accept offers during that period of time, but the listing agent as well as the property owner are not supposed to show the home to a prospective buyer during that period of time, which is it 10 days, 14 days?
No, it can be a maximum, I believe, of 14 days, but the moment you show it, it has to be changed from coming soon to active.
Then the concern is Bob has a nephew that comes over with his friend to watch a ball game and looks at Bob's house. And it's my understanding, too, the list agents can be fined if they tend to play games with a little bit, but that's going to create the market where you have to bid on a house sight unseen other than the photos and the videos of the house, because we're in a market where it's cash deals. You have to put it in fairly quick. You're going to have people in that 10-day period of time that are going to be feel compelled to put in an offer. So what's your opinion on it, Bob? I haven't really got a chance to talk about it.
Yeah, no, and I'm kind of on the fence, because what happens if you put an offer in and then it's accepted, and then the buyer comes in and actually sees the house after it's marked active, and they don't like it? I've never been a big fan of buying a home sight unseen. It happens all the time, but I think we run the risk of creating bigger problems. Now, the reason what happened was the coming soon label went away. I think it was about almost 2 years ago, if I'm not mistaken, Kevin. The National Association of Realtors changed it so we couldn't promote coming soon. And then there were a lot of people locally and around the country in different municipalities who said, no, we want coming soon. We think that helps promote it. And aren't we working on behalf of our sellers? And yes, we are. And so they brought back this coming soon up to 14 days with some provisos in it. But nonetheless, I think promotion can't hurt. So get it on the market, show what it is going to look like as much as possible, and then get an offer, right? A couple of weeks ago.
You're in a position, it's Well, and cash offers, but you have a lot of people waiving contingencies like inspection contingencies.
Yeah, that's true.
So that you're buying a house without physically being present. And I think you still have to be cautious. Everybody in this market wants to get their home, but you also have to be a little bit realistic. And like I said, having Brad come in and do a home inspection to me is not optional. It should be mandatory, especially in a situation. I just had one just this morning, putting a bid in sight unseen. Physically, they have not been on the property, but they're worried about losing it. So they're putting in an offer without seeing the property.
So dangerous. A couple of weeks ago, we put a house on the market. And I'll say it was 350,000, good part of town. We got an offer in 40,000 over the list, and they'll take it as is. They will do an inspection, but they'll take it as is. They won't ask for any repairs. And the first thing I did was I called the agent. I said, "Hey, did you actually show the house? I want to make sure because it was the first showing that she went in on, and they got the house." So it does hold true. The early bird does catch the worm.
Well, I would just want to interject one last story. Was someone actually, a broker rejected an offer and wouldn't allow it to be considered because the prospective buyer had not physically come in town to look at the property.
Really?
Yeah. They were concerned about the risk coming back.
There is and it's a risk. It's a very true risk. All right. Moving forward, something everybody needs to know about. We had an email come in which started this conversation going. And I'm looking for the email here. Mildred asked and had heard us talk about radon, wondering, a girlfriend told her about something called Air Things, that it monitors the house consistently. It monitors radon and other things in the house. She's wondering, is it worth making an investment? So that brought my attention when I saw that email. I asked Brad, tell us about your thoughts on something that does a constant monitoring, because we've talked about radon. This is the first time I had heard something. It's not cheap, but go ahead and tell us more about it.
So let me just preface all of this by saying that Air Things is the leading manufacturer of continuous radon monitors. So my company uses Air Things Corinthium Pros to do all of our testing of radon. So when we're involved in a real estate transaction, we're using Air Things. They are state of the art. They are battery powered. You don't plug them in. They are tamper resistant. So they can't be. You can't falsify any of the readings, things we've talked about on the show before with lesser equipment. But Air Things has a great specialization in indoor air quality. So the system that you're talking about is actually a system that I have in my house. It is called an Air Things Wave. So it's a monitor that's in my basement. What it does is it's monitoring continuously the levels of radon, volatile organic compounds, the chemicals that are in the air. It's monitoring the humidity, the temperature, and then there's a hub that you communicate with. So it will send alerts to my phone if, say, radon exceeds a certain level, or I just got an alert a few minutes ago that the humidity level in my basement is up. Again, I haven't turned on the humidifier yet this season, or the dehumidifier. So it's up, so I get the alerts. But then there's also a satellite that they call the Mini, and what it does is it tracks the VOCs and it tracks humidity, but it also has a mold risk. So you can use it in areas that would have a higher humidity reading at times. I've got one in my kitchen, but the reason that they're called Wave is you wave your hand in front of it and then it gives you a light. Green light means everything's great. Yellow is there's some things that are getting elevated, and the red means one of the things that it's monitoring is out of bounds. So take action, open windows, turn on fans, whatever the case might be. But yeah, it's a whole house system. They're available directly from Air Things. They're available on Amazon. I don't know what the current price is, Bob, for it. It's like, what, $300 or so? It
ranges from, it starts at maybe 179, and they're different types, and they go up. We should all, if I'm not mistaken, from what I read, because I'm pretty interested in just thinking about buying it, is that there's an app on your phone, so you're able to monitor it remotely from anywhere in the world from your phone, right? So,
correct. Yeah, it connects to your Wi-Fi in your house. So as long as you got Wi-Fi access to your home, then you can tap in and see what's going on. And it will push out alerts as things, get to elevated levels. It will send an alert to you too.
So, and does it monitor in some of them CO2, the carbon monoxide?
No, it's not a carbon monoxide detector.
Okay.
That's one thing that you would have to have a separate monitor for it. I don't know that there is an Air Things that has carbon monoxide in it.
Yeah. So the question comes up, and Kevin, I'm interested because for you and for all of our listeners, and again, it's pricey. It's not like you can spend $1 and you're going to get something. We're talking some money, but radon is so serious. Just to recount and recap this, if it's 4 picocuries or above the EPA, and Brad, by the way, is showing us his AirThings app on his phone right now.
Right.
That's showing 2.2. What does that mean? Your radon level is 2.2.
So that is my average over the last 48 hours. My actual reading at the moment is a 1.6, but over the last 48 hours, we've had some rain. Radon levels increased during those low pressure systems. So I'm averaging a 2.2, but this actually gives me, I can track it, for the entire year, and I see those seasonal. You can see the little yellow lines there where it's peaked out above 4 at a couple of different times throughout the different seasons. So you can see actually what's going on in your house day by day, week by week, month by month, and then just see it over a period of a year. And that's really, honestly, that's the very best way to track, radon in a home is truly a continuous measurement like that. My house, I don't have an elevated level of radon, but there are peaks, at certain times of the year, like we see here. I had 3 peaks in the last 365 days that were above a 4.
Would you not go down to your basement if it's above a 4?
I wouldn't probably not go out and work out down there. If it's high, I do try to, kind of stay out of the basement there. It's not my favorite part of the house, but I do have an indication anytime. And I actually make a habit of just kind of running my hand over the monitor, before I go and start working out. Just make sure that it is green.
Okay. A curious question from a layman's standpoint. If I have bought a house 10 years ago, radon tested, it was fine. Mm-hmm. Over a period of time, does that change?
So radon levels will fluctuate. The only thing I'll typically will tell people is unless you've made some structural changes to the house, if you've put new doors and windows in your house, you absolutely need to retest because the house gets tight. If you put in a new HVAC, particularly an air handler, then I would suggest retesting for radon. Even if you've had low scores in the past, you want to retest because the tighter the house gets, the more the radon will linger. Anything you do with the ventilation in the house is going to change where the radon accumulates and how it moves throughout the house and how quickly it will come out. But yeah, seasonally, you always get seasonal variations in radon anyway.
So you're saying if, for example, I put new windows on the first floor, it's a ranch. So even though it's on the first floor, should I have it retested because of the basement would be affected?
Yeah, I would. And the only reason is because now you've lost a lot of the air leakage that you would have had because radon follows a stack effect. So it naturally wants to move up. It goes from the basement up in the house, just the way the ventilation works. That's why we test in the basement because it's going to, typically have the highest levels. But anytime you tighten the house up and you remove all of those drafty areas, like that's why, a house that was built in, the 1930s or 1940s with basements that are made of cinder block, you don't see high radon levels there because the block is so much airflow that goes, through it.
And again, just to recap, the radon, colorless, odorless gas, second leading cause of lung cancer among smokers, the leading cause of lung cancer among non-smokers. That's why we're spending so much time on this, because it's a very important point of being safe and living in your home. And if you haven't done a test, if you haven't done a test at all, you need to, even if it's just on a slab or a crawl space, right, Brad?
Yeah, that's true. And for people that have a radon mitigation system in their house, I know that the folks that put those in will recommend that the systems are tested somewhat regularly, and that's probably every 3 to 5 years is what I've heard them say. But you want to make sure that your fan is running. A lot of times we have houses that we inspect, and the radon fan is not running. And if the fan's not running, it's not drawing out the radon from the house, and it will accumulate. So sometimes it's as simple as there's on-off switches. Sometimes someone will accidentally turn one off, or the switch has gone bad and it kills the fan. But that's something that you have to check.
You want to make sure it's running right. Again, what we're talking about for your home, if you want to invest in this, I found it on Amazon. Air Things, Wave Radon, and there's different models. The one that Brad you have is the 2950 Air Things 2950. Is that right? Do you know?
I have the one that's called the Wave Plus.
Okay.
I think it's called the house kit because mine has the hub and
that is about 300.
With
yeah,
the
that's the 300.
Yeah.
Okay. All right.
Hopefully that price has actually come down versus what I paid for it several years ago.
Folks, if you're thinking about it, you want more information, feel free to email me, bob@wesellouisville.com, and we'll send you out what I've got. We'll talk to Brad, and this whole segment, this whole show, as all other shows, will be available to watch and review. LouisvilleAnswers.com is where you want to go. That's going to give you a rebroadcast of the show. LouisvilleAnswers.com. Okay, we're going to come back with your questions via email because we're doing our COVID show. We're going to take a break. With us here, Kevin Dissler, Pitt and Frank Attorneys, 895-9900. I was going to say he's my friend, and so is all our team here. They're great people. Again, 895-9900. And then Brad Lawler, owner of Home Team Inspection Service, 844-411-TEAM. You can reach me anytime on my cell phone, 376-5483. We're back in a moment on News Radio 840 WHAS. News Radio 840 WHAS, Bob Sokoler, the Louisville Real Estate Show, here with you till the top of the hour. Thank you so much, Barbara Corcoran, who's a mentor and a friend with us as we continue our show. Brad Lawler, owner of Home Team Inspection Service. You can reach them at 844-411-TEAM. Also, Kevin Dissler, Pitt and Frank Attorneys, 895-9900. Kevin and his group do a phenomenal job getting the loans closed. And Kevin does a lot of other things as well. And then Brad and his team over at Home Team come in as a team and get the house inspected in a very short period of time and get it done the best you could possibly get. Back to our questions coming in, because we are in a COVID show format, which means no phone calls. We just take the emails. You can send me an email, bob@wesellouisville.com. So Kevin, Misty sent us an email. She has 2 large dogs in her house and is planning to sell her home this spring. And she's worried that even though the dogs are going to be in cages when the house is shown, she's worried that someone could try to pet the dogs through the cage and maybe get bitten. So she's wondering, what are her liabilities and how does she protect herself and her dogs from being sued? Any thoughts?
Well, we've had some situations like that in the past where, people have gotten charged or bitten by dogs during, showing the homes.
Yeah.
I think it's a better idea just, to try to have them out of the house if at all possible. If a child comes into the home, sticks their hands in the cage, you could have yourself a pretty good dog bite case. And again, you have to keep your home into a condition that, reasonably protects others coming into the home. And if Bob Sokoler comes into the home, dogs in the cage, plenty of warnings might work, but a lot of times you have people that are the little ones. They come in, and I just think that subjects you to some pretty good liability. And the other thing with the homeowners policies, I know a lot of them have exclusions for certain breeds. And so especially if that's not the breed covered by your homeowners, you're fully exposed at that point. It's just, I think, a good idea to just see if you can get the dogs out of the house during that time it's shown,
to prevent that from ever happening. Brad is showing a picture. Explain what you got in back of you there.
Speaking of getting the dogs out of the house, this is actually a dog that climbed out onto the roof with my inspector. So yeah, this was, when you take a picture of yourself up on a roof, it's called a roofie. When the dog comes out on the roof, it's when the dog comes out with you, it's called a woofie. Dogs can get into some strange places when the inspectors show up. That is for sure. So we appreciate them being secured and let the inspectors know where they're going to be.
Yeah, and if you want to see again the video or the pictures that Brad's showing, LouisvilleAnswers.com is the location, the URL to go to, LouisvilleAnswers.com. And from our perspective, I would just tell you that for showing your home, the dogs, for the best scenario, dogs, cats, animals should be out of the house. But we understand that just doesn't occur all the time. And maybe the cats or dogs get concerned or upset when they're out of the house. So if they're in a cage, that cage should probably be behind another barrier. So, for example, let's say Fido is in a cage and the Fido barks and blah, blah, blah. So the cage should be in another room, like a bedroom. And across the front of where the door is, you can put another gate So that prevents people from going in with a note. Please feel free to look into the room, but don't go into the room physically. That prevents the clients, the buyers, and their kids from going into the room and putting their fingers into the cage. I mean, there are ways to work around any scenario. Each one is different. So again, call me, and I'm more than no obligation, free of charge. Just call me and ask how you would handle this, and I'm more than happy to help you. 376-5483. So that it's a really good question, and it certainly is something that we are happy to address, because it can be scary when you're selling your house. You want to make sure things are done correctly. Alan sent us an email, Brett, asking us about his driveway. It happens to be an exposed aggregate driveway, and he noticed from this winter that there are a lot of cracks in, and also a couple of chips in the driveway. So he's wondering, what steps should he take to stop the cracking and chipping and protect the driveway in the future? And it may already be too late, since he's already got cracks and chips.
Well, I mean, cracks are going to be common in any type of hard surface, any poured concrete, whether it's an aggregate or whether it's, broom finish or, a rough surface. It's going to crack. Even with reinforcing steel in it, it's still going to crack. But you do need to tend to that. There are a lot of different products available at your, local big box store that is a crack patch. Some have sand in them, so they look very much like the aggregate. There are some that are actually just sand and an epoxy that will approximate the color of the aggregate itself. The only thing I would caution about that is that does tend to crack over time. And I'll, on a personal note, I tried that a couple of times. It always cracks. So I prefer something that's going to be more of a latex or polymer based, but still you can get it with almost a sand finish. But the chips that he's seeing is probably spalling, which is when layers of the concrete start flaking off. And the best thing to do there is to use the aggregate sealer. So there's a lot of different products out there, but either it is a do-it-yourself job. Best to pressure wash everything first before you put the aggregate down. I always want to put grit in it. There's a grit that you can buy, put into the aggregate, because it can be kind of slippery when it gets wet. So, when I'm doing my own driveway with that, because I've got that same type of problem at my house, but the sealer will stop the spalling from happening. It'll slow it down. It'll slow down the deterioration of that driveway. And, I probably am doing it every maybe third year in my house. Some people have, they may have to do it every other year, depending on how much, traffic they've got on it and how it faces the sun, and, how quickly the sealants break down. But that will help with spalling.
So a couple of questions about the sealant. You can get a stained sealant, so it's a little darker.
Yes.
If you're going to fill in the cracks with the concrete, and you want to try to match it, if that's at all possible.
Yeah.
You want to do that first before you put the sealant down, right? Yeah.
Correct.
Now, I had been told never to use a caulk in the cracks. Mm-hmm. Do you hold to that theory as well?
So caulk, it's a broad range. There are some things that are specific that I would call caulk because it comes in a tube, but it's made specifically to fill driveways. The caulk, I wouldn't use something that would be from my shower. One, the sealers are not going to cover over the caulk. They won't adhere to the caulk. So the problem you run into is if you use a kitchen and bath, a wet surface kind of is that it's gonna have a stark contrast to the rest of the driveway. But there are some things that I would call caulk, but made specifically for exposed aggregate driveways. I mean, they're the right color. They've got the sand finish to them, and they will take the sealer where it will stick to it like a paintable caulk you would have inside a house.
So the next question for that, and we'll wrap up on the sealing, is it sealer? Is it too often to do it every year, and can you overdo it by putting too thick of a layer on every year?
I don't think you can overdo it. I don't think you can get too thick of a layer, but it just becomes slippery. So unless you're putting that grit in there to give you a little bit of traction, a little bit of surface to it or friction to it, it just the thicker coats where you almost lose, and don't know that I've seen it, but where you would lose some of the pebbling effect that you have with the aggregate. All of those things are giving you a little bit of traction. So I think as long as you're putting some sort of grit in it, I've got neighbors that redo every year. I mean, it always looks beautiful. before they do it, but they put another coat on. I don't think it's hurting anything, but it can be really slick.
All right, we've only got a minute left, and while we're on this topic, and this, Kevin, you may have the same concern and problem. The steps, whenever I go to a house, I look very carefully to see if the steps are pulling away or if there's a crack between the steps and the threshold or the stoop. And a lot of times there are. And once again, it comes back to sealing those up. Mm-hmm. What would you suggest for those? Would you use a concrete or?
So, well, it depends on how severe. If you're more than a quarter inch or so of a gap, you probably are too far to be able to use a caulk on it. You probably, at that point, you're wanting to get somebody that can actually probably lift that stoop up. Some of the concrete, jacking companies,
right,
that can lift those things up, because what's happening is the steps are just settling because they're just poured in place and they're just settling, and they need to be lifted back up. So yeah, more than a quarter inch. You could put caulking backer in it, but really you're pulling away from your house at that point and want to stop the movement of those steps more so than even worrying about the gap.
All right, final thought on this, Kevin. If you bring in a company to lift the steps back up or patch it up to a perfection where you can't tell that there was any crack or movement before, should that be disclosed in the home disclosure? Because if you don't, are you opening yourself up to problems if the steps pull away again down the road?
Yeah, I think you could be. I mean, I think it's always good to disclose. If you have it professionally repaired, you have the paperwork from it. There's really no downside to not disclosing it. I don't think the normal homeowner would have an issue with that. The problem before, and it's just, you mentioned about the quarter inch. If you just caulk it, you sell the property, the buyer notices it sliding away, and it's maybe a hint of a structural issue with the home, then you have big problems, I think. So I think the best thing is always have it professionally repaired, keep all your paperwork, disclose, provide the paperwork. That gives you the best protection if anybody tries to come back against you post-closing, saying that, that you didn't fully disclose the condition of the home.
Got it. We're out of time. It was a fascinating show. We delved into some topics here a little deeper than we normally would, but I think it was well worth it. My thanks to Brett Lawler, owner of Home Team Inspection Service, a wealth of knowledge, 844-411-TEAM. Also, Kevin Dissler, Pitt and Frank Attorneys, 895-9900. Both guys do a great job in their respective fields. If you're looking to sell your house or thinking about it, call me. You can reach me at 376-5483. We'll talk about what the plan should be. No obligation. I'd be thrilled to be able to help you at any time. That's it, folks. We're out of time. See you next Sunday on News Radio 840 WHAS.